on Friday, it looked like the education board in Florida said you can't teach AP psychology because you're going to talk about gender identity and issues that have been banned from one of Ron DeSantis's anti-woke laws. And there was such a backlash. And then over a course of a couple of days, now it's like, well, okay, let's just forget we said that. And now you can teach AP psychology. As an educator, how dangerous is it to see what's happening in Florida and the way that these politicians are manipulating the curriculum that's being taught to students in middle school, high school, and even at the college level? What concerns do you have as an educator when a course can't be taught about psychology because they talk about gender identity and sexual orientation?
Yeah, no, this should be something that is a deep concern to all of us across the country. This is not just a Florida issue. Let's be clear, because in many ways, I think what we see happening, Areva, Florida is given a playbook that other states are watching to see how much they can push, how far they can go. It is, to me, absurd. It is not bordering on censorship. It is censorship to say that you can't teach a psychology course without talking about the core parts of your identity that shape the way that you develop as a human being, of which, by the way, gender identity, sexual orientation are integral to one's human development. So I think the fact that Florida continues to live in the Stone Ages, I hope that the general public does not think this is only related to Florida. This is something we should all pay attention to. And I'll say this, to the College Board, kudos for you for pushing back and saying that if we can't teach this kind of AP psychology course in totality, and we won't offer it at all. I just wonder where they were when they got that same kind of pushback around the AP African American Studies class. I wish they had the same courage to stand up for that like they have done for this. But I think when you really think about it, what DeSantis has done from proms to pronouns to gender restrooms, he is essentially trying to deny the basic humanity of millions of people across this country. And I think we all need to pay attention. So yes, this is an educator's issue when you begin to silence and censor and eliminate core aspects of human development, but it's also a human rights issue that I think we should all be concerned about and continue to watch.
Yeah, and I guess, Republicans have high school students that want to take AP courses, that want to get into colleges. So I'm just wondering, what is the Republican parent that's sitting at home with a kid who's trying to get that 4.5 GPA by taking all those AP courses think about what's happening? So all in the spirit of these culture wars, it's not as if only Black kids or gay kids, are suffering from these policies. All students in Florida's education system, in their schools, will suffer. At what point do you think Republican parents or parents that lean Republican, rise up and say enough is enough? These wars are, Ron DeSantis, you're going too far. It's a bridge too far. Now you're hurting my kids' chances of competing with students in states like California that offer these kinds of AP courses.
So I think what you have to remember on this, Areva, is that there's a long history of how white supremacy works. And white supremacy is willing to endure some degree of discomfort for their own if it means the denial of advancement for marginalized populations. So I think there are Republicans out there who are okay with some degree of regression in their own state of affairs, as long as that denies the opportunity for advancement and access for other folks. Because what they will do is say, well, look, you know what? You may not take the AP psychology class, but take the AP sociology class or take the AP biology class. Take something else, but we don't want this to be part of your profile, because that then humanizes a group of people that we don't want to be humanized. That's the way that patriarchal white supremacy works, is that, again, we're willing to discomfort and at times hold back some of our own progress as long as it minimizes your humanity.
And you're right. And we do see folks voting against their own interests, whether they're, poor people that somehow think Donald Trump is going to enact policies or in any way be an advocate for them, when there's absolutely no evidence to that. And in fact, there's evidence to the contrary. But let me ask you this, Alan, there's an article in the New York Times that says the GOP voters are tired of the war on woke. There's a new polling that shows national Republicans and Iowa Republican caucus goers were more interested in what they're calling law and order, which, who knows what that is, than battling woke schools, media, and corporations. And they really don't like this going in on Disney because they're supposed to be the party that supports big corporations. So do you think DeSantis's anti-woke, rhetoric and strategy is coming to an end?
Well, it never was meant to work nationally anyway. It's a Florida thing, and it always will be a Florida thing. It only played well in Florida. And speaking about the educational system there, as we know, many wealthy individuals don't send their kids to the public system anyway, right? It's been the long goal to sort of disrupt public education for everyone else while their kids continue to get this education. So the concept becomes, what will happen to those kids when they try to go to other colleges that might say you graduated from Florida, so you don't have this world education to get into the room? As well as we should speak about the 2,000 job openings they have for teachers right now in the state of Florida. I mean, that's the other thing. If there are no teachers at these schools, who cares what you tell them to teach? Because the kids are just sitting in a room with substitute people. And so when people sort of look at what Ron DeSantis has done, right? There are no immigrant workers, the workforce is low, they can't get insurance on their home, all those problems that he created that he could have been addressing while he was somewhere fighting the 1% of the drag queens, or looking at some big fight on some word wokeism that he can't even explain what it is, just shows you how little of a person he is.
Yeah, I saw an article where this gay doctor, he's like the only specialist in his particular field, who said he was leaving the state. So there's going to be an enormous talent drain from that state because of these policies. And Donald Trump said this about this woke. He says, I don't like the term woke, adding, it's just a term they use, referring to Ron DeSantis. Half the people can't even define it. They don't know what it is. So once Donald Trump has come out to say, I don't really want to be bothered with this woke term, the MAGA base now seems to be turning on anti-wokeism, and they're ready to move on. So Dr. Howard Allen says it was never meant to be a war, a culture war that was, fought outside of Florida. But if Ron DeSantis can't talk about, Florida is the place where woke goes to die, and he's says woke 19 times in a 15-minute speech, what is left for Ron DeSantis?
There's nothing left, because that is the basis of his entire platform. I haven't heard him. He had a faux pas when he tried to comment on the Ukrainian war issue, because he was so just bereft of information on that. He has no real sort of strategy around policies. I haven't heard him talk about tax programs, job creation. Haven't heard him talk about how he would deal or address issues around the deep-seated poverty that exists in his state. I haven't heard him talk about any of the issues that are like they call so-called meat and potato kitchen table issues that everyday Americans are facing. He has made this his entire campaign. And once this is gone, you see that there is no there. So I think that's why his campaign has been an utter failure from day one, and it only continues to spiral downward.
A couple of these other candidates are equally going to have problems when woke dies. Nikki Haley, the former South Carolina governor, she speaks of a woke self-loathing that has swept the nation. And even Tim Scott, Senator, black man, Republican from South Carolina, he declared that woke supremacy, something he defined as woke supremacy, is as bad as white supremacy. Now, Tim Scott needs to be ashamed of himself.